Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerd. I'm Nerdarchist Ryan, and today I'm joined by
Dave.
I'm Ted.
And today we have some fresh kills for you over in the Meat Grinder. We had someone asking for advice on a DM tip about how do you run a Meat Grinder game or campaign, right? That was the genesis of this whole...
was.
And do we know who this was from?
We do not off the top of our heads.
Oh no, we need to consult the Oracle, i.e. the computer. So who do we have there? So that was Adam Raven Ray having that question.
It was.
Was he doing that thing where I think it was the comment about how it was like his character like pushing into other territories? Was that the discussion where like he's trying to...
Oh yeah,
overtake?
yeah.
It's
It's Meat Grinder-ish.
It's like a military campaign that's going to be Meat Grinder. I mean...
Well, in my frame of reference, or my head, a meat grinder is one of those things that it's not really listed as a campaign, because if you're constantly plowing through characters, like there is no overarching story for everyone, because
It's just a series of encounters.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going and you're fighting a lot of stuff, and all right, you die. Oh, this guy steps in. He's out of nowhere.
Well,
So
let's define what is a meat grinder. A meat grinder, in my opinion, happens in a dungeon, and a dungeon can be anything. A dungeon is, you have limited choices and options, directions to go that you can go, and everything is pretty much planned out and mapped out.
Right.
Now, the meat grinder part of that is the survivability of said dungeon is very low.
Well, and it's a battle of attrition. Like, you are eventually... There are choke points. There are points at which you're going to run out of your resources. Your back's going to be up against the wall. There might be some sort of traps and deadfalls in this dungeon that basically you can't get out. If you don't have food and resources, you're going to effing die. And that's just all a part of the tropes of a meat grinder dungeon.
The traps are going to be deadly.
Yeah. There's lots of things that, like... you're going to be punished by your own greed and avarice and this and that too. Like, if you see something that looks super special and awesome, don't touch it because it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you. Yeah, exactly. Like a meat grinder, like it's almost like
every door is a mimic.
Yeah, like a meat grinder, it's almost kind of okay to metagame it because it's you're challenging yourself against like the unbeatable odds of this thing.
One of my favorite memes or cartoons that I've seen is the players mapping out where all their other characters have died,
right.
And that's like the roadmap of the dungeon.
Right. Yeah. That's
here's where Fred died, and here's where Gina, Ted, and George died.
Yeah, and also too about a meat grinder is like there's random encounter tables that like there are just some absolute horrendous things that are beyond the scale and scope of the characters and what they can deal with. Like when I played through Rappin' the Thook up, and I think we started at like level 5. We made it to level 12 before we died. Okay, so we did pretty okay by and large. There were some things that like really went in our favor, but one of the random encounters that we had of one of the things that like pushed us towards our annihilation as a relatively low character was a dragon that was in the region saw us, an ancient red dragon saw us, and basically was like, I'm going to come back for you. Like, it didn't tell us, it just wheeled around, but it was observing us the whole time. So what it did is, when we were coming back from the dungeon to sell off some goods, because you get weighed down by loot, all the loot, and you want to sell it and get better, because you have to constantly upgrade your gear in a meat grinder dungeon. Right. So we're getting ready to go to a place to go sell stuff, and he basically banded us. He was like, I'll let you live if you give me all of your stuff. And he's a chaotic evil dragon, so there's a question of whether he would have held to his word or not even. But like we friggin' like plane shifted to get the hell away from this dragon. Like luckily we were playing with an oracle who by that time had the option to plane shift, and that's what we did. And I think actually at one point in time to get rid of him, we plane shifted him to another realm.
So did he keep coming back to haunt you guys?
Well, so the second time we encountered him, I think we managed to escape him the first time. Second time we encountered him, I think he got plane shifted and possibly to Galorian, so that's the world of Pathfinder.
Yeah.
So some shit went really left field in Pathfinder because they had an ancient red like pillaging around, and then once the dragon like gets his spells back or like figures it out, he's gonna be very pissed off. A Death Knight killed us off, like, so we didn't have to worry about the red dragon. Like, nice. We got killed by the Death Knight instead. So I mean, it was just like all these things compiling against us, like, and that's That's a meat grinder.
One of my early gaming experience was Tomb of Horrors.
Yeah.
And I was actually playing a character that had died and was reincarnated as an Ogre Magi. And like one of the traps in Tomb of Horror was there's a hole in the wall, and I forget what was on the other side or whatever.
It was not a glory hole.
But it was not a glory hole.
Because imagining when it's a sphere of annihilation, but your character...
No. This one was not the sphere of annihilation. I reached into it, and there's just blades that come down and sever whatever goes in.
Right, so that would be really funny for the glory hole reference.
Now, luckily, I was an Ogre Magi with regeneration, and then, I figured out how to get my limb back and reattach it. Well, the next thing I encounter is a statue of a face with a gaping maw, and it's just darkness inside, and you can't see anything. And you can kind of like reach into it and stuff, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, there's got to be something really good on the other side.
Oh yeah, because you're being punished by your greed, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So as it just so happens that I happen to be the right race to be able to shrink down small enough to go into the hole, and and that's when I hear you find plenty of room in this sphere of annihilation.
So my brain's going all kinds of wrong, and you guys can fill in the blanks about that because earlier discussions. But another thing too, like. In a meat grinder, if a DC is ridiculously hard, in 5th edition that would be around DC 30. In like Pathfinder, you're talking like 40s or 50s or whatever. Like, so if it's the kind of thing where your character would have to roll a 19 or a 20 to have a chance of noticing that thing, in a meat grinder, you're usually punished for things that are so well hidden that you actually shouldn't find it. Like, we found a secret door, and like there was like a friggin' like staff of the Magi or something behind it, but the thing is, it was like a symbol of insanity, and like all of us got inflicted. But I think somebody did like somehow we were able to like invoke like second edition where you pray to your god type of thing.
Divine intervention.
The divine intervention, like the role was
that's 3rd edition too.
Yeah,
Fine enough cleric.
Yeah, or 5th edition had it. Yeah, has that. But yeah, like basically, like our oracle rolled the percentage chance for divine intervention to like he prayed to Pharasma to like backtrack and not have us do that. Like basically amend time and space.
Yeah.
And then we go back in time the 5 seconds before this shit happens, and his character breaks the land speed record because he gets in front of us all, stops us from doing whatever we thought we were going to do, and it never happened. But like that was like one of the other times the game should have been over because that's a meat grinder.
That'd have been funny if you guys then tried to figure out another way to do it and had it happen again.
Yeah.
It becomes a time loop.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We just keep getting stuck.
Yeah.
So meat grinders, the phrase "save or die" is going to be a common thing. You're going to encounter monsters that it's going to be like, well, you need to gauge, like, well, is this I run or is this a fight? And because when you get into the run situation, you might be running into corridors that you haven't explored before, so that opens up new traps, which are save or die.
So basically, fighting the zombie beholder in the room full of chlorine gas, that would be like an average encounter.
Yeah, that's right.
After the door slides shut behind you, sealing you in.
Right.
Yeah. So this discussion of meat grinders, like, really, it could be that, is this the kind of campaign, because he's talking about a military campaign, is this the kind of brutality and campaign you want to inflict on your players? Or are we talking about something else?
Right. Are you looking to try and literally do it where you're trying to plow through character after character in the meat grinder sense, or are you looking to have something where it's more of just a challenging game? Because that is two different situations.
I mean, and like that really would bring it home if the thing that you wanted kind of reiterate to your players, like the brutalities of war and like life being cheap on the front lines and this and that, them going through characters after character in this conflict, that might be a way to do it. But if you want them to have characters that they get attached to and have meaning, then I don't think a meat grinder is what you want to actually do. Yeah.
No.
So
it's kind of like a specific thing you do, and it's a specific campaign you're going to play. If you're doing it as a campaign where you're just like, yeah, we're just going to plow through character after character, like you guys did. We're going to see how deep we can delve into the dungeon. Team of Horrors is the same way. There's some other modules out that are like that. It's the meat grinder is very Gygaxian in origin. It is definitely the game where it is the DM versus the player.
Your characters are pawns. They're pawns. They're pawns on the chessboard, and you're willing to sacrifice them. You know, and that's kind of
I
how
almost feel like pawns have more meaning,
more value than a meat grinder character.
like they have a purpose at least.
Yeah.
You know, like really, you know, a pawn tries to get the other side of the board and become something greater, but you know. In the meat grinder, it's just a matter of when you die.
So, I mean, so now that we've thoroughly defined what the meat grinder is, like to really address his question of like a military campaign, I mean, some of that might even go back to our mass combat video where you talking about having different fronts and different choices that the player has to make. Because like to talk about what this game could be if not a meat grinder, like have different things and different consequences going on, different like, you know, like do you try to save your supply lines, or do you deal with this, or do you go reinforce the city that's being besieged? You know, like so have different stakes and options, and have those have repercussions and meaning to your characters. Yeah, it's kind of the thing.
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right there. I don't think he really wants a meat grinder, because you know no one plays a meat grinder campaign per se.
Well, or you do it
rare.
with like you go with eyes wide open that like I'm either going to go into this running one character until it dies, or you have a character tree of like 5 or 6, and like we'll play through this until X time, you know.
Yeah, but it's not like a long ongoing campaign arc where, you know, you're developing characters and character traits and stuff like that. No, you're just doing this thing until you guys get bored of it, pretty much, and move on to a regular campaign.
Yeah. Now, so yeah, like maybe you create like a handful and not even stat them out, but like come up with ideas for like generals that the characters are going to encounter and lieutenants and stuff like that and their agendas. Maybe you have some that are like willing to defect and join your side or something. Are your characters going to be the kinds of people that like are going to fight the PR war of like, come to our side and fight for us?
I'm not really sure that it's a campaign where he's got an army that's going through. I feel like it's a character moving through this territory and is trying to push in and survive. So
it's like one man against armies? Like that's, I mean...
Well, no, you wouldn't be doing that. That wouldn't even make sense. But unless you're Rambo, then you could do it.
Yeah.
But no, I think it just, to me, it seems like he's going for a grimmer, grittier campaign arc or story arc where, you know, a lot of it is just you have to survive. And, you know, from that, you can take inspiration from things like Lord of the Rings, where that meant, like, running away a lot.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's about, that kind of stuff is just about making better decisions of when to fight and when to run.
Right.
When to parlay. You know, it's a completely different kind of campaign. It's not a meat grinder. It can be your standard campaign. It has very specific setting and goals and objectives.
Yeah, so if you want to kind of merge the two a little bit, you know, you can, you know, up the difficulty, you know, forcing that, you know, runaway situations much more often. You know, it makes it more challenging. It makes it, you know,
but
you know,
he's talking about
edge.
this character like driving through and taking over territory. So at that point, if you're one dude taking over territory,
well, yeah, you're not going to do it.
It's not going to happen. Like you're not going to, because you're going to have to fight against armies. You're not. They're not just going to keep saying, "Oh, we're going to send out our champion to fight you," and like, no, fuck you. We're going to send 200 guys. Have fun. Deal with that. You know, like they're not going to give you a fair fight.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like you got to reread the comment now.
Yeah.
Hey, I was focused on meat grinders.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know, so if you know they want to, you know, chime in and give us some more information in the comments, you know, then ourselves and our viewers can go ahead and, you know, give some more tips and feedback.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know if is this a party or is this just like the GM and one player like going back and forth?
I kind of gather that it's a party.
Yeah.
Well, the way it's written, it kind of sounds like one player though too.
Well, one player trying to do this thing.
You know, unless it's one player spearheading the thing. Yeah, I don't. We kind of need more information, I think.
Yeah.
So,
but talk as to whether this is legitimately a meat grinder and that's what you're trying to do and everybody's on board to that, or if they're trying to do something else.
So with that, you know, put the information down below, and we'll try and, you know, be able to, you know, either give you a second video, or you can just use the comments to, you know, give more tips and tricks. While you're commenting, feel free to like, share, even subscribe.
You can hang out with us over on nerdarchy.com.
You can tweet at us at Nerdarchy on Twitter.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.
limited choices and options, directions to go that you can go, and everything is pretty much planned out and mapped out.
Right.
Now, the meat grinder part of that is the survivability of said dungeon is very low.
Well, and it's a battle of attrition. Like, you are eventually, there are choke points, there are points at which you're going to run out of your resources, your back's going to be up against the wall. There might be some sort of traps and deadfalls in this dungeon that basically you can't get out. If you don't have food and resources, you're going to effing die. You know, like, and that's just all a part of the tropes of a meat grinder dungeon.
Yeah, you know, the traps are going to be deadly.
Yeah. There's lots of things that, like, you're going to be punished by your own greed and avarice and this and that too. Like, if you see something that looks super special and awesome, don't touch it because it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you. Yeah, exactly. Like a meat grinder, like, it's almost like
every door is a mimic.
Yeah, like a meat grinder, it's almost kind of okay to metagame it because it's you're challenging yourself against like the unbeatable odds of this thing.
One of my favorite memes or cartoons that I've seen is the players mapping out where all their other
is one of those things that it's not really listed as a campaign, because if you're constantly plowing through characters, like, there is no overarching story for everyone, because
it's just a series of encounters,
right?
Yeah.
You know, you're going and you're fighting a lot of stuff, and all right, you die. Oh, this guy steps in. You know, he's out of nowhere.
Well,
so, like,
let's define what is a meat grinder. A meat grinder, in my opinion, happens in a dungeon, and a dungeon can be anything. It basically, a dungeon is, you know, you have.
Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerd. I'm Nerdarchist Ryan, and today I'm joined by
Dave.
I'm Ted.
And today we have some fresh kills for you over in the meat grinder. We had someone asking for advice on a DM tip about how do you run a meat grinder game or campaign, right? That was the genesis of this
That
whole.
was.
And do we know who this was from?
We do not off the top of our heads.
Oh no, we need to consult the Oracle, i.e. the computer. So who do we have there? So that was Adam Raven Ray. Having that question.
It was
he doing that thing where I think it was the comment about how it was like his character like pushing into other territories? Was that the discussion where like he's trying to?
Oh yeah,
it's
it's meat grinder-ish.
It's like a military campaign that's going to be meat grinder. I mean,
well, in my frame of reference, or my head, a meat grinder